All right, welcome to Mike's Mail, episode 4. Let's get right into it. You know what the most often commented thing is when I'm rappelling, quite often you'll see that I'm putting nylon on nylon and then I'm rappelling off of that. And people go, well, you can't do that. Well, I can do that, and I have done that, and I'll probably do it again. But the thing is, I'm rappelling, I'm not setting up a top rope anchor, and maybe there's a miscommunication there. This is not an anchor for top roping, with multiple people going up and down on it. Of course you need a piece of iron of some kind. But it's just a rappel off of it, and then you pull your rope and you might do it again and again and again, and it's just a way that you just don't leave quite as much material. So not every video that I make, or not all the video makes it into the other episodes, and so from the cutaways, I think I can piece together this show. So let's have a look. Okay, and then I get a few emails. Well, this has to be a steel point. Well, no, it doesn't have to be a steel point. We're on a big multi-pitch route. There aren't steel points and steel anchors everywhere, you guys. This is the way we've been doing it since Christ was a cowboy, okay? So stop emailing me and saying, why don't you have a steel point here? Because the nylon doesn't play on nylon until you pull the rope and you're off of this anchor, okay? And then even then, if there's not a lot of weight to it, it doesn't really burn the nylon. Or in my experience, it hasn't. And we've reused the same slings from the same tree, dozens and dozens and maybe even hundreds of times. I don't know. As long as it isn't burnt, I don't worry about it too much. So for you history buffs, back in the day, this 1-inch tubular webbing was pretty common, and I just wrapped it a couple of times, put a water knot in there, and then just feed my rope through. And I feel pretty good if I just put that sling there, about wrapping off of that. I don't know about you. And then suddenly, 1/4-inch super tape tubular webbing, really strong, also came into being. And I feel good about wrapping off of that too. And so, as long as you're wrapping, there's no seesawing of nylon on nylon, so you really have nothing to worry about. And then if I do come to a wrap station and I see multiple slings, for sure I'll just put it under both of these slings, so this one breaks, this one will catch me, I don't have any real worries that this one's going to break in the first place. I just whatever. I'm that chicken sort of guy that hooks up everything. And if there's a third one, so much the better, I'll hook into that one too. There we go. Okay, in a perfect world, we'd be, the whole world would be hooked up with these wrap rings, with these cold steel. And wrapping off of these things is like wrapping off like little bearings. They just vibrate and the rope comes really nice and clean. Nobody's going to think you're a pussy if you leave a couple of carabiners behind because you're worried about nylon on nylon, and you're backing off a big route somewhere. I'm not going to think you're a pussy because you leave a couple of pieces of gear that might be critical. But honestly, though, in the last 15 years or so, it's increasingly more common to see a piece of steel here. And that piece of steel could be these sort of quick links, I call them. And this one here is a 5/16, and it says it's good for 1,760 pounds. So you can take that for whatever it is, but that's about a 5/16. Wouldn't go too much thinner, and maybe that one's a little bit thinner. Right, and I'm guilty of carrying them too. I actually have one on my harness, one or two usually at any time that I can use them and just leave them behind. Okay, well, in answer to your question, I had to go down to my basement and really dig around to see if I had, because I haven't used them in quite a while. What I like Hexcentrics for is that they're really lightweight, and yet they're really useful for, you know, like slightly large cracks. And 3 of these would be about the weight of, you know, 1 camming device. And so if I'm on an alpine route or something like that, then that's some place where you might see me having some Hexcentrics. You know, they don't take up that much room, they're lightweight, and they're pretty useful. Now Hexcentrics, I don't know, they've been around for as long as I have or longer. But they're kind of like the original passive camming device because of their shape. You can place them in such a way that, you know, when they're tugged on, they try to get larger in size inside wherever your placement did or your crack. And another useful thing is, you know, you can just drop them into a slotted crack or someplace behind, you know, maybe a large rocks or something like that, and they'll drop in there. One disadvantage of them is they don't seat that well, so there is a chance of them rattling loose. So you have to be kind of aware of how you're placing them, you know, but occasionally you can, you know, get them in such a way that they'll cam correctly, and then they'll seat, and when you pull on them, they try to get larger inside the crack, and they become really useful that way. So, I realized that it's been forever since I used one of those cowbells, and that I might be just talking through my hat. So, I'm going to go and try and place a cowbell on every pitch of this 11-pitch climb that I'm about to do. And we'll have a look to see if my opinion's changed on these things at all between now and in the next 5 or 6 hours. Anyhow, we'll talk to you soon. So I ended up using a cowbell there. I used it twice so far in 5 pitches. I was glad to have it, actually. I wasn't even going to bring these things. I never used it, but I got into a crack system, kind of an overhang, and it flared inward, so I couldn't, like a cam wouldn't go unless you're, you know, like using it as a truck stone. And who does that? I mean, they say you can, but I've never known anybody do it. I've never tried it. But I could slot the my cowbell in there, my Hexcentric, and I could throw it in and then turn it sideways, and the edges caught just nicely, and it gave me enough confidence to actually pull the move. And once I pulled the move, it wasn't that hard, but I was kind of terrified, and I had nothing else that fit, like because this is bigger than my number 10 rock, and the cams that I had quite a few, but none of them were going to fit in there because of the way it flared on the inside. Instead of flaring out, flared inside, so you could get into it, but then your cams wouldn't catch. It wasn't a parallel side crack. So, and then the other time I used it so far is as a runner. Actually, I had 2 pieces of gear and I was out of slings, and so I ran the runner section of this to each piece of gear, and then cooked the carabiner to the center, even though it was right close to the cowbell. It's all I had, right? So that's the way it is. You just use what you got. I mean, just because it isn't designed to be a runner doesn't mean it can't be a runner. And that worked. Or it gave me, once again, it was a really kind of a tough spot, and I didn't have the confidence to pull a move otherwise, and so there it was. Thank God for cowbells. World needs more cowbells. So when you're asking how many carabiners do I carry on a multi-pitch climb, generally I carry 3. So today I forgot one. I only had 2, and I needed one for my belay device. I had to leave one behind to join a station together to make a master point, because there was 2 chains without anything. But what I can do, and I have no problem doing this, is I just use a standard carabiner, because things just don't open up, eh? And then I back it up with another carabiner up to the bolt. So I'm in the focal point, And then I have the carabiner up to the bolt up there. And, you know, I'm comfortable with that. I'm not saying that's what you should do or whatever, or maybe carry 4 carabiners would have solved that problem. Today I showed up with 2 locking carabiners, but generally I have 3, and I wouldn't have an issue. So now my belay device, of course, as I stick it in, I'm forced to use just a standard carabiner on my, what do we call those things again? ATCs. But I'm okay with that. So, just saying. All right. In conclusion, there's a reason why I don't carry Hexcentrics. It's because they fumble around, and every time I grab one and try to place it in a crack, I wish I had a cam. Because then I could just pop the cam in there, get out of there before I pump out. And there's no way that I know, I like no confidence in those placements. Those things just like fumble around in there. I don't know, I got a better feeling about a cam. What do you think?
I think cams are better.
I think so too. Yeah, so that would be the reason why you don't see them on anybody's rack anymore. I think they're... I get inundated with email about why am I doing this or why am I doing that? You know, like why am I not using a locking carabiner at every point? Why am I not using a steel, you know, when I'm rappelling? Why am I rappelling off the rope? Off of a nylon sling, you know, things like that. And yes, there's sort of rules, but I think there's rules in every sport where you just, you know, you start out and bang, you do A, B, C all the time, and then you realize, well, maybe B and C could kind of fudge them together sometimes if you had to. And then, and I think every sport, especially kind of these extreme sports, have these sort of really clear-cut rules. I wonder if I could explain and put this in a way that the layman could somebody like yourself could understand. Think of them more as guidelines. So, you know how, you know, when you start driving, right? When you first start out, there's good rules. I mean, and there's reasons you have these rules. So you have your hands at 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock, and, you know, your foot is, only use one foot on the pedal, and there's good reasons for all these things. And in climbing, that's, you know, it's very similar. When you're starting out, you're not sure, so you stick to the rules religiously, right? And then, you know, as in driving, you know, 20 years goes by, and next thing you know, well, you're cracking a beer, and you're rolling weed and answering the phone all at the same time. Yo.
Hey, where are you off to? Are you gonna be back soon?
Oh, yeah. I'll be right back. Yeah, no problem.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's the way to go. Yeah, so, you know, that's what it is, man. It's what it is. Once you've been climbing for a while, you can't always expect to know what, you know, what's going to happen. You can't guess ahead, but you have enough gear and you have enough experience, and if you're willing to sort of just experiment a little bit or just look at what you have, you'll find that you can use it for a lot of stuff, more than it, you know, it's initially designed for. So just keep your mind open when you're out there climbing, and just remember you got all these carabiners, slings, cams, ropes, webbing. Just be creative. So you can see here where I used a nut. The hanger had been taken off. Obviously somebody didn't think a station should be here. I use this station all the time. It's on Mother's Day. So I can use a nut and use the wire and quickly make a hanger out of it. So, you know, you can be creative. I'd chat more about this, but the weather's coming in. I got another pitch or two to go, and then it can rain in biblical proportions for all I care. But I like to get off this rock before it gets too wet. So I just thought I'd hang that out there for you. Catch you later. Bye. Hey there. Now also now D. Moser and a couple other people actually were wondering why I wasn't using locking carabiners at all my points of contact when I'm building an anchor. And it came from this one particular anchor, this one here. And you can see how many points of contact there are for me to construct that anchor. Now, if I were to add up that many, you use a locking carabiner in each of those locations where I hooked a cord to it, and then say the next anchor I built required just as many locking carabiners, plus I had 3 carabiners personal for myself. My partner had 3 carabiners. This is how many locking carabiners we'd require to build 2 anchors, right? And that is the weight of a good size trad rack. You get quite a bit of gear. Using regular carabiners, it's about 1/3 of the weight, and does pretty much the same job. So fortunately the association, unions of Mountain and the Alpine Club and that have made agreements with most of the major religions that nobody's going to die because a carabiner opens up on a point of an anchor. It's just not going to happen. The Catholics are on it, the Roman Catholics are with it, the Greeks held out for a little bit, but they're with it now. The Norse gods, they were there, made sense to them right away. So we're allowed to use these regular carabiners without screw gates. Could you imagine how many times you'd have to screw a gate and unscrew a gate in a day? To construct our anchors, and then just use locking carabiners at our main points of contact where you tie in with the rope to lock yourself off to the anchor that you've constructed. So that's why it's mostly a weight and practical issue. Somebody goes to grab the beer, you get inside, sweep the hand back, grab the glass.